YouTube fan community, Temptations fans, random people on the internet, my name is Giggens, and we are here today to talk about the Temptations' 1967 album, With a Lot of Soul, released on the Motown Gordy Records label July 17th, 1967. This album, beyond boasting a bunch of their hits of this time during the Classic 5 era, a lot of people would say this is like the peak David Ruffin era. This album in particular. The one after this, I Wish It Would Rain was his last one with the group, but for a lot of people, this was like a really heightened era of the group in terms of popularity and mass appeal. I mean, the Temptations were a humongously hot band for a long time. But as far as the group being on fire and being on top of the world with David Ruffin, this was probably the peak of that moment. Most of the songs on this album were done in the early 67, mid-67, beyond a couple of singles. Mostly I Know I'm Losing You, which came out as a single in November of 66. So almost a year earlier, that song had come out as a single and was put as the lead track on this album. This was definitely a popular album for the guys. I mean, it did extremely well in the charts for them. It didn't help that all the singles on here were also humongous singles for them as well, with I Know I'm Losing You, All I Need, Loneliness Made Me Realize It's You That I Need, You're My Everything, Just One Last Look. I mean, this album plays like a greatest hits album. It's loaded with some of their best songs. This also came after the period where they had stopped really being Smokey Robinson's project and became the project of Norman Whitfield, who kind of took the group with Get Ready and kind of changed their sound to a little bit more of a dynamic, a little bit more of a punchier, heavier sound than what they did with with My Girl and some of the earlier stuff, which I love. I mean, I love most of the Temptations albums, but this Norman Whitfield era is very cool because I feel like without this era, you would have never gotten to that psychedelic soul stuff they did with, Psychedelic Shack and Puzzle People and all that stuff in the late 60s, early 70s. So yeah, it's mostly produced by Norman Whitfield. There is one song on here produced by Holland, Dozier and Holland that did Just One Last Look, and apparently they fought to get that as a single, and either Motown or Norman Whitfield said no. I'm not really sure what the story is behind that. But the Temptations never had a single produced by Holland, Dozier, Holland, which was one of the main songwriting groups at Motown. So that's kind of interesting. And there's a couple of random moments, not random, but a little bit of a curiosity in their canon where one of the songs on here has all 5 of them doing a lead vocal on the same track, which is pretty rare for this era of the group. I mean, when Dennis Edwards came in, that was like just how they did it at that point during the psychedelic soul era. They traded off lead vocals all the time, but during this time it was mostly Eddie or David, or Paul once in a while doing lead vocals, and the other guys doing the background stuff. So they have a couple of songs on here where you do get to hear all of the guys sing, was pretty cool. And Otis gets a lead vocal on the very last track, which is pretty cool. We don't hear him do a lot of lead vocals, but so everyone gets a shining moment on this thing, except really for Melvin. I mean, you hear him in the background a lot, but as far as getting a lead vocal, not on this one. This was an interesting time for the group. I mean, at this point in the band's history, Motown was going through a flux where they were trying to rename their bands, and so it became Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, Diana Ross and the Supremes, Martha and the Vandellas. So David Ruffin, who was the lead singer at this point, really more so than the other guys in the group, it was like, it should just be called David Ruffin and the Temptations. And the Temptations were like, no man, it's not going to happen that way. Like, they come to see the Temptations, we're a group. This is what we're going to do. We're a team, we're a group. So apparently he was getting pretty out of hand. I wish I knew more about the details as to what was going on with these guys at the time. There's not a ton of information out there. Otis does have an autobiography out there that he wrote years ago, and it's been updated over the years as well. To the exact details of some of the stuff David was pulling. And there's rumors that he had like a mink-lined limousine that he would travel in by himself without the guys when they were going to gigs. His cocaine use apparently was skyrocketing. So he was kind of just off on his own, doing his own thing and missing gigs or missing meetings. I guess he was becoming a bear to work with, basically. But his voice was absolutely amazing. Like he added a really cool, soulful, rough, charismatic delivery to the group that really makes for some of the best popular music ever recorded. I mean, when you hear a Temptation song, when you hear I know you want to leave me. Like, you know, like, you're in for the ride. Like, that's just his voice, his delivery. That said, I would never discredit the other guys. Eddie Kendricks has one of the best vocals of all time, too. I mean, you hear songs like You're My Everything, what an amazing song, or Just My Imagination. Fantastic lead vocal. But he got a couple of moments from Paul on here, and again, he was the original lead singer of the group. He did the first few singles with the guys. He was the face of the Temptations for a while. So fantastic voice, but then you can't also discredit Melvin and Otis. They also have great voices too. Melvin doing the deep stuff, and Otis has a really soft but articulate voice. I like his voice a lot. And when you hear the psychedelic soul stuff, his moments for me have always stood out. Because I just like his delivery. He's got a really interesting, distinct, timbre to his voice. But on this album, it's mostly led by David Ruffin, who was basically the lead singer at this point. So like I said, I Know I'm Losing You went to number 1 in '66. All I Need was at number 2 in 1967. You're My Everything at number 3, and Loneliness Made Me Realize It's You That I Need also at number 3. So with that, I mean, the opening track on here, I Know I'm Losing You, what a intro to that song with that rubbery guitar line, like, you're instantly hooked into this song, and then just cascades, just barrel rolls through the entire thing with this big bombastic kind of heavy brass and drums pounding against each other, to then make way for a nice smooth simple groove. And one thing I have to comment on with the instrumentation on this album, the bass on this album is fantastic. Every single song has some sort of really intricate bass line or a real smooth walking bass line. It's a lot of fun to listen to that. Another thing that stands out on this album is the amount of bongos that are on this thing. They give it kind of a, I don't want to say exotic flavor, but it gives it just a whole different kind of mentality than just your standard music, standard drums, bass, piano kind of stuff. Having some bongos on there adds a different dimension to the track. Kind of shakes it up a little bit. But just a crazy intro to a song and a great way to start the album. Vocally, the Temptations on this song are absolutely phenomenal. I mean, David just killing it, ripping through the lead vocal. One of my favorite parts in this song is after the end of each verse, they're the "Losing You." I can't sing, but when they all do that "Losing You" bit, very cool, fun to sing along to. It gets you stuck in your brain. David's lead on this one is very earnest and rich and passionate. You just believe every word that he's singing. Obviously, who knows if these things were based off of real stories or not, but they take the song and make it their own, and that's, I think, the impact of a great vocalist. I mean, look at Roger Daltrey. He took stuff that Pete Townsend wrote and kind of made it his own and became a storyteller. And did an amazing job with it. That's kind of how I feel with people who take songs that were written by other people and run with that. So, very cool. Just an amazing song. Always been one of my favorite tracks. It's slightly bordering on the edge of manic, and I kind of like that it's got a little bit of an anxiety, a little bit of a tension kind of feel. But it's such a fun song. Ain't No Sun Since You've Been Gone. This is cool. I love the growing vocal harmonies in the beginning and the bouncy rubbery bass again, plus more bongos. The background vocals on this one for me really fill out the track. David's ad-libs are pretty fun, and it's got a really cool hip vibe. Like, there's a couple shifts that happen that are, I wouldn't say unexpected, but definitely kind of gives a little bit more character than just a standard run-through of, verse, chorus. The little ad-libs that they do and the little shifts that are there give the song a different flavor. I think keeps it really interesting. And the tense drums that just are non-stop throughout this thing give it a good, a fast-beating heart kind of feel. Really cool. All I Need. This is a great song. I mean, lyrically, it's about a guy who cheats on his girlfriend and begs for forgiveness, but it's sung really well. And the music on it is almost joyous. These big kind of bells and chimes and strings and stuff really come across as rediscovering what true love was again and realizing that you completely messed up, but you want to be there for that person and give them everything you have. Just really sung really well. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's like classic Motown sound. Or just a non-stop vocal performance in this one. Very cool track. Followed up by Loneliness Made Me Realize It's You That I Need. So another needing song, but this is the track that features all 5 guys in the middle of the song doing a lead vocal, which is just so rare to hear during this era of the group, which I really love. So it's got that classic Temptations feel. But the solos in the middle are Paul, Otis, Eddie, and Melvin in that order. Each doing a line, which I think is so cool, and it makes it feel more like a group. It makes it feel not just David Ruffin and the Temptations; it's all of the Temptations. Um, but I like that the background vocals kind of do their own thing. They don't just follow what David sings. I mean, they do once in a while, but having them do their own lines and their own lyrics, I think also gives it a different character and dynamic that sets it apart from other tracks on this album as well. No More Water in the Well, this one's fun. This is Paul Williams on the lead vocal on this one. His voice is just so cool. I like the rawness in his voice because his songs always have a bit of a, I don't know if I want to say desperation to him, but he's always got a bit of a yearning and a looking and a searching kind of delivery in his voice. And I just like his voice. I just like the way he sings. It's just a really cool timbre. I'm going to use the word again, timbre, to his voice. That just makes you want to listen more to him. He does some great stuff. His version of For Once in My Life, holy moly. If you've never heard that, look that up. That's on YouTube. They did a version of that a couple of times. It's on one of their albums. But his version of For Once in My Life, hands down, one of the best that there ever was. But yeah, this one's really cool. I like the way it moves along. And it just sounds like they had fun on this song. You can kind of hear them smiling a little bit. Like the way they deliver their vocals sounds like they're having a good time, which is pretty cool to hear. And then the last song on side one, Save My Love for a Rainy Day. Eddie is on the lead vocal on this one, which is good to finally hear him take a lead. Having sung so many of their most popular early hits, The Way You Do the Things You Do, Get Ready. I mean, he was a great lead vocal. He is a great lead vocalist for this group. I like the breaks on this one a lot. Again, amazing bass line. Just a fun, happy song. But again, the chorus and the shifts on this one remind me a lot of Ain't No Sun Since You've Been Gone. The way it kind of moves along a little bit. The way the song is constructed. Yeah, great track. Side 2 opens with Just One Last Look, and for me, this is that classic Motown sound, and probably because it was produced by Holland, Dozier, and Holland. But the descending chords that go through majors and minors give you that roller coaster feel of the ups and downs of either a breakup or thinking back on a relationship that no longer exists, and the feelings that come with that. And that's an amazing attribute to the song, in the fact that they sing about that, but the music also encapsulates that as well. Very fitting. Yeah, the tension on this thing is fantastic. The build-up is there. The key changes are essential. It definitely works as a track. And it could have been a big single, I think. It's a great song. Sorry is a sorry word. This one's definitely catchy in the chorus for sure. I kind of like how the song construction on this one is interesting too, because some of the verses change a little bit with the chords, and they add some pre-chorus stuff once in a while, so the construction is definitely interesting on this one. It doesn't follow your standard rhythm of like intro, verse, bridge, chorus, that kind of stuff all in a row. There's a little bit of a break there, which is nice. I really love hearing Melvin on the chorus in this one. You can definitely get a bit more of his voice in the background. And Eddie just shines in the background as well. You Are My Everything. This song is fantastic. Roger Pensamine wrote this for Eddie in mind. This is the same guy that wrote I Wish It Would Rain, and the other one which I can't think of right now. What the heck was that called? I'll Never Love Another After Loving You, off the Wish It Would Rain album. And this is just an absolute smash of a song. It's always been one of my favorites. I kind of like how it drops in. You get that little bit of that intro before it just comes bounding in with the big chimes and strings, and it just sounds like happy. It sounds like a blossoming romance. It sounds like what new love is. Just romantic and sweeping and joyous. And they do a great job of delivering that, and Eddie's voice on this track is just perfect. He floats along with it so well. It's so fun to listen to. The articulation in his voice and the way he just sings so happily and so joyously, it's infectious. It makes you want to keep playing it over and over again. And then David's part where he joins in with Eddie in the bridge there, where they both kind of like reiterate what each other one is thinking about this girl. Crazy good. It's just so fun to listen to. An absolute great song. One of my favorites on the album, hands down. Now That You've Won Me. This song is really good. David kind of sings it a little bit different on this one. More of a sweet vocal, more of a tender delivery. There's moments of roughness for sure, but overall, kind of a different take for him. Instead of kind of going over the top like he normally does, he's kind of reining himself back a little bit, which I think is pretty effective, just for changing it up on the album anyway. The strings and the bells I think are great, and overall I get kind of a 50s doo-wop vibe on this one, which is nice to hear. And then Two Sides to Love. Eddie takes a solo on this one, and this for me this is like a slow jam of a song for the 60s, you know? Really great vocal delivery on this one. There's background vocals in there, but I feel like they're not as present as they are in other songs. And it's almost like Eddie's whispering a lot of this, so that's kind of an interesting track to add onto the album as well. And then Don't Send Me Away, Otis on lead vocal, which is so cool to hear him do a lead. You know, at this point that I'm making this video in 2019, he's the only original surviving member of the Temptations and still out on tour doing his thing with the current group. And some of those guys have been there for almost 30 years now. So I like the swirling strings on this one, and it feels like a closing track. It feels like a closing tune, you know, when you're at the bar and they're like, all right, last call, I'll get out of here, we're going to play closing time now. It's got that kind of feel like this is the end. We've come to the point in the story where we need to conclude things here. It's a rare showing for Otis to do a lead vocal, and I think he does a great job. I mean, he does lead vocals here and there throughout their career, but not as often as I think he should have. He has a great voice. I like the way he sings. His delivery is nice. Just a sweet, interesting vocal, but that's it. That's the whole album. And I'll show you the inside label here. I don't have the original sleeve anymore, fortunately, to this one, but the Gordy label. Very cool. And this is a stereo copy original from 1967. And overall, I mean, I am a big fan of a lot of the different eras of the Temptations. Everything from when they were doing stuff with Smokey, to this stuff, to the psychedelic soul, cinematic soul, and then just the funky dance stuff of the 70s, and then when they got back together with the original guys and for the reunion album. There's so many eras of this group to choose from, and so much music that they made over the years that it can be overwhelming. If you look up their albums on Spotify, there's a lot of albums there. A lot of them are really good. This is one of the best. If you're going to look for a great Temptations album to get into, if you're familiar with their hits but you want to try out one of their actual LPs, definitely give this one a try. Absolutely fantastic. I'd give this thing an 8 or 9 out of 10. It's a great album, one of their best. Let me show you the back cover. Didn't even think about that. Great picture of the guys. There you go. Great shot of the guys back there. You can buy other Temptations albums at the store. So that's it. My name is Giggens. This has been The Temptations with a Lot of Soul, 1967. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video, and let's chat about some Temptations in the box in the comments below. Thanks, guys. Bye.